Hey everyone, we're here tonight with some friends from the East Side football programs. We are here with the programs that have become what we consider a feeder program here on the east side of town, and we wanted to introduce you to the coaches and the guys who are most involved with those programs and how they help build the programs that we have at this point. So I will turn this over to these guys and let them introduce themselves to you all.
My name is Brandon Moore, and I am the head coach of the Franklin County Rams.
Leroy Brock, and I'm the head coach of Elkhorn Middle School.
Eddie James, I'm the head football coach at Franklin County High School.
All right, so let's talk about how a feeder program starts. I think for years it's an idea that people have, and other programs in the high school have been able to accomplish this. But for you guys, what did it take? What was the impetus for this to actually start?
I guess I can take that one. The program started back in 2016, but we had actually coached in the old FYFL. I'd been in the FYFL coaching since 2009 with my older son. And, we just weren't really happy with the product that our kids and the players that were in that organization or in that league were getting, and we knew we could do more. We wanted to travel outside of Frankfort and to kind of expand the level of competition. Back in those early years, if you went outside of town and played in any type of larger tournaments, you just couldn't compete. The product we were putting on the field wasn't very good. The equipment wasn't very good. It just wasn't a high level of competition or high level of quality. And we wanted to increase the level of competition and quality of what our kids were getting. We wanted to raise that bar and raise that standard. So around 2015, we kind of got the idea, and in 16, with Coach Ledford, Coach Tracy was involved in that. We started having the conversations, and there were several different ideas tossed around. But ultimately, we created Franklin County Youth Football. And, the first thing we wanted to do was provide the best equipment and the best training for our coaches available. So we met with several Riddell representatives and made sure that we were able to provide all new Riddell equipment. That was one of the major concerns with the old league, was that the equipment was just so substandard. It wasn't reconditioned, it wasn't updated, and we knew that with what we were wanting to do, we had to provide that great equipment. So Riddell was a great partner with us for that, so we were able to purchase all new equipment that first year, and then we partnered with Marty Moore and the CKYFL, Central Kentucky Youth Football League out of Lexington. Marty was a great partner, had some great organizations there in Lexington.
Is this the great UK linebacker Marty Moore?
It is, yeah, it is. It is Marty Moore, played at UK, but he had ran a Bulldogs team and organization. We kind of utilized a lot of things he was doing with the Bulldogs to kind of formulate what we wanted to do with our program. So the goal when we created Franklin County Youth Football, we set some very short-term goals, and we wanted to have 3 age groups, a 6U, an 8U, and a 10U. We wanted to have 25 players per team, so 75 total, and we wanted to be able to compete in the CKYFL. And a lot of people told us we couldn't do that. There wasn't a lot of great experience competing outside of Frankfort, but we did. We met all those goals and actually exceeded them. We had over 100 players that first year. We've had over 100 players every year since, and we actually won the CKYFL championship with 2 of our 3 teams and took all 3 of our teams to the Battle in Rocky Top National Tournament, which we go to now every year as kind of a culmination celebration at the end of the year, and competed very well. Those were some great teams, great families. They trusted us to do something outside the box. We actually took 100% of our parents and players from that FYFL Rams team. We took 100% of our players with us. So everyone trusted us, everyone went, and we've had great success ever since. The best move we ever made.
So you're currently at Elkhorn Middle School, but Brandon, you're in charge of the Rams at this point, correct? So. Yes. One of the things that you mentioned with Riddell and other aspects is the fact that you were concerned that you wanted to have the best equipment for the health and safety of these kids. Brandon, as you know, there are parents out there who may have a very good athlete or someone who is one of their family members who is very fast or very has unbelievable talent or size, but they don't want their child to play football. They especially don't want their child to play football at 7, 8, 9 years old, and they use the Peyton Mannings and the other NFL parents to say they didn't let their kids play, so maybe I shouldn't let my kids play. Talk a little bit about the standards that you all have with regards to not only the safety equipment that you have, but also the protocols that you have and what you have in place to protect these kids.
So obviously it starts with the equipment that we provide, and as Leroy said, it's Rydell, and we play against a lot of teams that do not have what we have, and that really stands out to our parents and our kids when they see that and they know that we have the best. But beyond just our equipment, all of our coaches go through USA Football heads-up certifications every year, and we have to re-up on that each year before we get started. And when you go through that, it goes through a whole list of how to teach kids how to tackle the proper way. It goes through CPR training, AED, everything that you could imagine as far as, from a health and safety perspective. We cover that with our coaches each and every year. It's not just a Rams rule, it's a rule with us being in the LYFL. You cannot coach in our league unless you've got those certifications. So it's something that we take very seriously.
And since you were in the Lexington, Central Kentucky, you guys have moved to the LYFL, which is the Louisville Youth Football League, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, sir. The idea behind that, I believe, was you wanted to just play the best of the best, which is kind of bold, saying, we want to play the best of the best. Lexington, you're not quite good enough for us. We're going to go to Louisville and play these guys. But tell me the thought process behind that and why you wanted to make that move, if either one of you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so the LYFL is the largest youth football organization in the region, and it was actually voted in, I think it was USA Today, one of the major publications, as one of the top leagues in the country for what they have established. At the time, I want to say there were 28 organizations and over 5,000 kids in the league. It's a little bit smaller now through attrition, and some teams have left, but we still think we have 19 teams in the league, 18, 19 teams in the league, extremely competitive, great organizations with great leadership. Really was drawn to the way the league was ran, the standards that the league set, the things that they believed in, and just the size of the league. Gave us an opportunity to travel. It's really ran sort of like high school football, middle school football. You play home games, you play away games. Each organization has their own facilities, their own fields. So it's a great league and a great opportunity to travel and compete.
Where does the Rams, where do they, what's their home?
All of our home games are played at Franklin County High School, so it's just another part of what we do, where our kids start at the age of 5, 6, and 7, and they get to play on that field, and they feel, that's their home field. It means so much to them, and honestly, you can see when they're around our middle school kids and our high school kids, like how much they look up to them and how much their aspirations of playing on that field on Friday nights grow as they grow.
So just to kind of wrap up, when it comes to becoming involved with a group like this, tell me a little bit about if a parent is out there and wants their kid to experience football for the very first time, whether that's through the first time they've ever touched a football, or whether they have played in another league and they want to move into more competitive because they think they may have the talent to play at Elkhorn or Franklin County. What is that process that they have to go through?
So, they can reach out to us in a multitude of different ways. I mean, we constantly put our information out there to be reached, whether it's through Facebook or our cell phones or email or whatever the case may be. But kind of what you were saying, we've had several parents who have come to us who have played in other leagues around Central Kentucky, and they've said, we want to put our kid in the highest caliber league around here and play against the best competition. And we've had kids that have come from Scott County, the kids that have come from Anderson County,
It's
kids.
a good point. That is a Frankfurt program.
Right.
Any longer. This
Right.
is-
Yeah, and they've come and they've played for us, and they often compliment how how well and organized our practices are, the level of competition that we're playing at, and that they're being pushed harder than they've ever been pushed, and learning the game at another at levels that they haven't learned before, and we take it very seriously, and we want to make sure that we're teaching them the best that we know how to teach, and just helping them to progress to where. I've often told Leroy, like when our Rams get to you, I want them to be as well prepared for middle school football as they could possibly be, and I feel like we absolutely do that.
So Brandon, tell me real quick, what's the schedule for you guys? When do tryouts begin? When does the season go, and all the way through your national championships that you guys play in?
So we don't have a tryout. You sign up to play for us, and you are on our team, and we start practicing around mid to late June, and then right around 4th of July weekend, we take a little time off, give everybody time for their vacations. And we understand, during that time of year, a lot of families are taking vacations, so we're extremely lenient on when they come to practice, but usually, around the end of July and into August, we get real serious with our practices. Our practices are Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and we practice from 6 to 8 in front of Franklin County High School. Our younger kids, the Mighty Mites, that's our 5 to 7-year-olds. Once school starts with them, we back them down to 2 practices a week so that we're not overwhelming them with everything that they have going on. And we play a lot of games. As Leroy said, we've got 18 teams in the LYFL. So we go through our season there, which is about a 9-week season. Once that wraps up, we've got our playoffs in the league, and that lasts a couple weeks. And then after that's finished, we are starting to prepare for the Rocky Top tournament from that point on. And so we start finding teams from around Central Kentucky that we can play that are actually outside of the LYFL. And we schedule them, and we play those games leading up to when we go down to Rocky Top, and that is usually right around mid-November before Thanksgiving.
So it's about half the year that these kids are dedicated to the program, and the parents have to be dedicated as well. Talk to me a little bit about expense. I mean, I assume that football is one of those things that's not one of the cheapest sports in the world. So I'm sure there's some people out there that are concerned, I would love for my kids to play, but I have twins, and I have one that's 2 years younger, and I can't let them all play if it's going to cost an arm and a leg. Tell me how you all deal with costs and things of that nature.
One thing we pride ourselves on that we've said from day one is there will never be a kid who can't play football because of finances. So we have a scholarship program, and if there's a kid who cannot afford to play, then we scholarship them 100% of the time. There's never anyone who cannot play because of the cost. In addition to that, or I guess to supplement that, we do a lot of fundraising. So we've kind of got fundraising down to a science now, and it is expensive to run the program. We've got a pretty hefty budget, but over the last couple of years or few years, we've really built our fundraising abilities up to where we keep enough money in our accounts to be able to provide those scholarships. We actually have a scholarship fund. We had a coach that passed away during a season a few years ago, Coach Nunn. He was loved in the program all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. He actually coached at Elkhorn and the Rams. When he passed away, was coaching in both programs. And so we've dedicated our scholarship program. It's the Coach Jonah Memorial Scholarship Program. We have a Coach Nunn Memorial Bowl game at the end of every season, and that part of that money goes to support the scholarship. So that's part of the fundraising. But that's just something we say we will always do, and we always will provide scholarships for kids who can't afford to play, because it's not their fault they can't afford it, and we're going to find a way for them to play football.
Just so you guys know, the reason they're all hacking and coughing is because they came here directly from practice. That's why they're drinking water and yelling at the kids. No, they're yelling at them, instructing them strongly. So, first of all, I just want to say that what you guys are doing for the youth of Frankfurt is amazing. It's not an east side, west side thing. I know I started off saying that, but the reality is there's a lot of kids that play at Western Hills that go through your all's program. There's a lot of kids that play in Anderson County and Scott County. and the level of interaction in sports is not there in a lot of areas. We don't have a YMCA program here, if you will. We're lacking in soccer and things of that nature. And the fact that you filled this vacuum with a sport like football that, quite honestly, I can speak from a guy who graduated in '94. We won one game one year and none another year. So there were many years that Franklin County was not a football town. And I commend the two of you for what you're doing with these young folks. Let's move to Leroy a little more focused.
Sure.
Let's talk about what it takes to become an Elkhorn Elk or to be a middle school football player to begin with, and how do you transition from the Rams into 6th, 7th, 8th grade football?
Well, similar to the Rams, we don't do tryouts and cuts. We want everyone to be able to play football. So if you come out and try to play football, if you're willing to come to practice and you have the grades that's required, we have some standards for the grades that you're required to be passing your classes and doing well in school and meet all of those standards, then you're on the football team. Obviously, middle school football is a little more advanced, a little more dynamic, a little more challenging. We practice a little more than the youth programs do, but it's really similar. We all kind of have the same expectations. We run some of the same offenses and defenses. We kind of start with the Rams and transition over to Elkhorn, and actually at Elkhorn you start picking up some of what Coach James is doing at the high school.
And you're using the same language when it comes to plays and things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
So it's not a surprise to them learning a new.
No, actually at Elkhorn we're running both some of the Rams system and some of Coach James' system, and we kind of mix those together to meet what our skill set is at the middle school, and it's worked really, really well. Our 7-on-7 organization has really helped that. So the verbiage that we're using with our 7-on-7 organization is the verbiage from the high school's program, and it trickles all the way down, starting to even use some of that language with 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. So it's been great. The football is just football. It's just a little bit bigger kids, a little bit faster kids. But we're just playing football and having some great success. It's the kids that are really helping us with that, because we've got some really good kids.
What if you have a kid that is never played for the Rams?
Mm-hmm.
Parents didn't want him to start that young, perhaps.
Sure.
Let's say that might be it. But they think they're a little bit bigger. They may be ready to at least try football in 6th grade. Maybe they hadn't even been exposed to it, or they just moved into town. Will you still work with those kids, or do you have to be a member of the Rams to be able to touch the ball as an Elk?
No, sir. We've got kids that come from all over. We've got kids that come from other programs. Once you're in the program, it doesn't matter at what level you join the program, you're part of it. So we've got kids that have played for other teams in town. We've got kids that transfer in. We've got kids that have never played football before. Once you're part of the program, you're part of the program. It doesn't matter where you played. You're treated just like everyone else, and we expect you to work the same way they do, and we just go to work.
One of the things that we talked about the first time we met was I asked about, we used to have a 6th grade team, a 7th grade team, an 8th grade team, as you guys probably remember. You don't necessarily have the same situation here. Correct. Because you sometimes take your 6th graders and you actually encourage them to finish out with the Rams to gain some experience and athleticism. Is that correct?
Sure. We want them to have that year to build confidence, because what was happening before is you have a 7th grade team and an 8th grade team, and a lot of those 6th graders aren't ready to play with 7th graders. There's a lot of physical growth that occurs between 6th and 7th grade, and what happened was a lot of those 6th graders were undersized and they weren't getting a lot of play time. They weren't having a lot of success. So with the model that we've taken, having 6th graders, most 6th graders play for the Rams in the youth program. They have that year of great success. It teaches them to be a leader. It's great competition, but it's competition that is similar size, similar strength, similar speed and athletic ability. So they have a really great season there, and then they transition over into a 7th grade football player. So we take 7th graders and play 7th grade football, and 8th graders play 8th grade football. There are a few 6th graders
That was
that
going to be my
occasionally
question.
will play.
If you have a freak of a kid that is,
Yeah.
that has a mustache and built like a 16-year-old, you might consider them for the 7th grade team, and there's
Sure.
no limitation on that, correct?
And we do that. And we sit down with parents each year for multiple reasons. We have a player right now that's a 6th grader that starts on our 7th grade team. Outstanding athlete, has been in the Rams program for several years, and we knew, even though he could have went back to the Rams right now and would have been the best athlete in the league, it was best for him to come on to the middle school. He's one of the best athletes we've seen at 7th grade, even though he's a 6th grader. And we sit down with his mom and talk to her, and we give them our recommendation, and it's ultimately up to their family to decide what they feel is best. And luckily, she agreed with us, or lucky for me. I think Brandon would have it right now.
Brandon really was.
Yeah.
But he's an outstanding athlete, outstanding young man, and there's some other kids that we've had the same conversation with.
Before I get to Coach James, he's itching over there to talk, but before I get to Coach James, you guys have standards not only on the field for your players, but off the field as well, even as young as the 7-year-olds that may be playing with you, right? If these kids are not making grades, if the parents come to you and say there's a behavior problem, or if they have gotten into trouble, heaven forbid, even with the law, you all have standards for these kids, right? It's not everybody gets to play just because you're in the program, correct?
Correct.
And why is that?
Well, I mean, if you're going to be a part of our program, then you're going to do the things that you need to do off the field before you ever get to go on the field. We stay in constant communication with teachers in our elementary schools. It helps that my wife is a teacher and she knows everyone, but everybody follows what we're doing here in town, and they know that if they've got an elementary kid that's in our program, they're going to reach out to our coaches. Matter of fact, we've had a kid here recently who we've worked with his teachers quite a bit, and I check on him about every other day to see how he's doing in school. And if he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, then we really praise him and love him up when he gets to practice and tell him how awesome it was that he had a great day. And if he had a bad day and we find out about it, then he's got a little extra running or bear crawling or whatever the case may be after practice. But and I talk to him and I say, if you want to grow through this program and be a part of it by the time you get to high school, you got to understand that there are standards that you will follow, or there's plenty of other kids who will do what we ask them to do that will play football as well.
It's impressive that you guys each take those positions. You all have children. You all have had kids in school. And each of you have played football. So it's interesting to me as an outsider. I was not a football player, but I'm obviously a huge supporter of the team. I was this size in 8th grade. It wouldn't have worked. But the thing that is impactful, I think, that you guys don't know is that more than 60% of the kids in this county don't have a father figure in the home, and I'm actually sure you do know that, and I want you to know that that's a major impact on the lives of these kids, and what these guys are doing is different than any other type of sports program that's out there, and I think it's important that you guys are actually praised for what you do, because in a lot of these kids' lives, you're the disciplinarian in their lives. You're the only reason that they want to go to school and want to get good grades, because they want to play. And so I commend you for that. And in a time when we tend to want to give everybody a trophy, you guys aren't willing to give them a trophy.
Here we are, Coach James.
All right. Eddie, how'd you end up back in Frankfort and Franklin County, and tell me about your experiences as the Franklin County High School head coach?
So I've actually coached since the day I walked out of high school. I spent some time in Elkhorn Middle School and worked my way up, and was blessed to work under Coach Tracy. Then I took a couple of years and actually went to Boyle County. I was very blessed to work for Chuck Smith, high school football in Kentucky. Chuck Smith he's the GOAT.
We don't talk about Boyle County on this program.
And I was lucky enough to come back, and I got to spend the year with Nick Sheridan, and that was the year that the Rams and everything kind of started up. And then I got the job in 2017, and we really since then we've really made a huge commitment to our youth, and not just our players, our coaches. It's an open door policy. We run clinics for their staffs. We're going to open up. We were talking before we went on air. Like, we got 140 kids signed up Friday night. We want those kids to want to be Franklin County Flyers. So we invest in it. We put branding out there. We're going to give them T-shirts Friday. They're going to get autographs from our players, take a photo shoot in our equipment. But to me, it's about an investment in them that's going to pay our program back down the road. And having guys like Leroy and Brandon allows us to, when they get to us, they know the standard. They know that it's not acceptable to just go in class and act like a fool. You've got to have standards in the classroom or you don't get a play. So these two guys really make my job a lot easier. You can always tell when we get kids that have been completely through the program because of they know that they know what the expectation is, how they're supposed to act, and that makes it a lot easier in terms of running our program.
Talk to me about what your expectations were as a young coach. How old were you when you took the position?
29 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk to me about what your personal expectations were coming into a program that had had a couple of good years in the short term, but had had a couple of 4-win seasons, I think, 1 year just before you came. Tell me what your personal expectations were.
So my first year, I remember, the goal was to change everything. If it was blue, it was going to be gold. If that was the helmet. If it had been done this way, I wanted to do it that way. And not necessarily that it was done wrong, but I wanted to show change. And to me, the change was about starting to lay the foundation for a program. We've had great teams here. We've had great athletes. We've had great seasons. But my goal and my thought process in the beginning was, how do we take every decision that we make and make it so it has an impact in 5 years, 10 years? And, there's no handbook for it, man. I go to the interview with this beautiful handbook, all this stuff. The first day on the job, they're like, such and such has 3 FC game practice. So, it's just always about making decisions about what's best for the program. And that's hard. I tell parents in our parent meeting every year, my job is to make a decision for 70 people. And of those 70 people, every single one of them is the most important person in your life. That's hard. But always trying to make those decisions with what the impact's going to be. My son's 5. He's playing in his first year with the Rams, and I tell our kids all the time, I'm not going to make a decision to help you that could hurt the program when my son plays. So we try to make all the decisions based on the future because I want to be here for a long time.
Okay, that leads me to my next question. Even after your first couple of successful seasons, there was a bit of flirting with other programs and things of that nature. I think one of the things that folks would want to know is, did you get that out of your system? Do you feel like this is home and you're gonna?
So as coaches, man, you see it on TV every year. Everybody's going to the next job, the next best thing, and I actually talked to Chuck about it, and he was frustrated and wanted to leave Boyle early on, and he said his wife just said to him one day, "Just be where your feet are," and that was powerful to me because we've proven that what can be done at these Boyles and the Corbins we can do here, and that comes with building a program. Now, we're in the infancy stage of it, but I think being able to do that and being able to do that at home makes a difference. When I go to a bank trying to get a sponsorship, a lot of times it's somebody I went to high school with. There's just a lot of connections and a lot of benefits to doing it here, and we've been given unbelievable support. I mean, Coach Tracy's my principal right now. He supports all of our kids, but he understands the struggle that we face in football. A football helmet costs $400. So to raise the money to put helmets on 70 kids you can do the math. And so having the support and being able to do it at home, it just means a lot. And, now that my son's playing, I want him to be a Franklin County Flyer.
So since you have been at the program, there have been some major changes. You all went undefeated one season. Then you've already been to the state championship game. To say that you're in the infancy of a program should give excitement to the people around here that we're not in the infancy where we're going to have some 5 and 6 seasons. Even this season, we'll talk about this season, for example. I read your initial statements to the Herald Leader, and you said, we're a young but talented team, which is what my Detroit Tigers, they always say about them. They're young but talented, which means that we're going to lose 100 games this year, but we're going to make it entertaining. But you guys are already 3-0. You have not played a 4A school yet. You have beaten 2 5A schools and a 6A school. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Two Bryan Station and Great Crossing are 6A. North
My apologies. 2 6A schools, 1 5A school. You haven't even played anyone that is in the same division as you, and yet you are holding opponents to 12 points a game. The thing that interests me about this, and here's where the question comes in, is sometimes in some seasons, this is your 7th season, is that correct?
That's correct.
7th season? So some seasons you go out there and you're like, we're going to score 52 points a game. Other seasons you have won by just beating the dog snot out of people with a Peyton Ledford and other guys like that, because you know you're the most athletic. And tell me when it is that you determine this is going to be the style of offense we're going to have to play this year.
I think it kind of unfolds itself as we go. You know, we meet a lot in the off season, we clinic and do stuff, and we have an idea. But you know, the last 2 years we've switched quarterbacks game 3 or 4. So it really depends on your kids. But you know, we take the things that we can count on: the attitude, the effort, the discipline, the accountability, and then we build from that. You know, there's been last year our best play was a ram play. We would line up and Peyton would kick somebody out and Christian would hit the hole, and those things were just what they were good at. And as coaches, you know, sometimes we can try to outsmart ourselves. And as a young coach, I was an offensive coach, and I'd have all these plays, but our kids couldn't run them. It just didn't make any sense.
Like the Boise State play.
Yeah. And, you know, I laughed last year at halftime of the Corbin game. I walked back out with a note card.
Yeah.
That's all we needed, you know. And so, but our kids believed in those 8 plays we were running. So it wasn't, you know, that, but it just kind of happens, man. This group is, you know, we've had some struggles at quarterback. We've played a game and a half without our quarterback. So we really don't know what we are offensively yet. But in the meantime, our defense has stepped up and carried the load while those guys develop. And I think you'll see some changes offensively for us that'll kind of open things up. And I think we're going to end up being really good on both sides of the ball.
Well, let's talk about that as we get a little more focused on that. Talk to me about the quarterback situation going into Friday night.
Our quarterback's healthy now, you know, which we're coming off a bye, and he's
Came at a good time. The bye came at a good time.
It did, and when we scheduled it this way, we knew we were going to be young, so we got 3 games under our belt, and we could have been 0-3 and reevaluating where we're at. But, you know, now we're 3-0. We've had a week and a half to get healthy, and we get to start district play this week. But he's doing a good job, man. He's a good player. He's a transfer from Frederick Douglass. Works hard. He leads. He's a lefty, which is kind of weird. As a play caller, you know, his abilities, you have to flip everything in your head, but he can make every throw. And we really haven't got to see that because of the way we've had to play and the turnovers and things we've experienced versus North Laurel. But he's a special player, and I think he's got a chance to be our district player of the year if he has the set of games we think he can have. But it's just getting his feet wet. You know, he's been a backup and a JV kid, and he's paid his dues at another program, and now he's here to flourish.
Let's talk about a couple other kids that are already all-district, all-region players. Christian Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Moore, I've heard nothing but good things about this kid, that he's humble, that he works hard, that he does what he's supposed to do. And, I mean, the kid's a consistent 128, 130 yards a game, 2 touchdowns, doesn't fumble the ball. I mean, tell me what it is when you get a kid like that, where you've had some power backs in the past, and you've had some speed backs in the past. He's a little bit of both, but then you also have your thunder and lightning. You have a second running back you usually throw in there as well. But tell me a little bit about the run game.
You know, so Christian, man, Christian cut his teeth against our state runner-up defense. He was a freshman on that team, and so every day he got to go against Peyton and Philip Pfeiffer and these kids. And then we saw flashes of it. He'd get 4 or 5 yards, or he'd pop a run. But he doesn't look like he can.
Right.
But that's who he is. He's just this goofy kid who's always smiling, but he's yes sir, no sir. He does what we ask him to do. And really, towards the end of last year, if we knew we needed to get 3 yards running straight ahead, he was the guy that did it because he just put the ball where it was supposed to go. And having that as a coach and knowing that's in your back pocket is a good thing, And this year he's kind of rounded himself into shape, and he struggled a little bit, had some good games, but he's really kind of hitting his stride and getting into game shape right now. And we've got a sophomore behind him that's Jaquan Crawford, he's really kind of hitting his own. So we think we've got a really good 1-2 punch with the ability to put Gavin Hurst back there some. So we like where our run game's at, but it's still a work in progress. We're developing some young O-linemen. So, but we feel confident about where it's trending.
Segue, your next all-district, all-region player is probably Gavin Hurst, who was able to take a COVID year, 5th year, and also be able to use that for his own benefit for recruiting purposes and things. Gavin has essentially been your utility guy for the last 5 years. Let's be honest. I mean, you have a linebacker out, he's playing linebacker. If you have a running back out, he's playing running back. And then last year, you lose your quarterback. You don't have a quarterback, essentially. He just steps in and he's your quarterback shortly after broils from the year before. And so I guess my question to you is, has Gavin Hurst hit his peak yet? Have we seen everything that Gavin can do? It seems he's all over the field, but when he's back there at defensive back and safety, it seems like that's where
he's home now. Like he is. You're talking about a kid who's played safety, he's played receiver, he's played quarterback. He's done every bit of it. When we get in our goal line defense, he's our outside linebacker, all 170 pounds of him. But he is. I mean, he's a war daddy. We don't throw that term around a lot. But Gavin's a gamer, and Drew got hurt for straight crossing, and literally before anybody could yell for Gavin, he's taking his gloves off like, I got it, let's go. And that's just who he is. Our kids like to jab at him a little bit and tell him that he played with Steve Compassi because he's been there forever. But, man, he is a kid. He's a kid you want in your locker room. He wants to be better. We're leaving practice today, and he's coming in there, and you can tell he wants to say something, and he goes to our receiver coach, and he's like, tell me about this route. And he just wants – he's probably done it 100 times, but he just wants to get better at it. And that's his attitude, and that attitude is kind of disseminated throughout our team because they look up to Gavin. He's the elder statesman. He's the only 5th year we got on this team. And so they kind of look at him as that. We were hanging some banners today, and there's a picture of his freshman year of him hitting a kid. And, I realized, some of our kids weren't on that. Most of them weren't on that team.
those kids are in 5th grade.
And he said it the other day, he's the only kid on our team that ever played on grass at Benny Watkins Field.
Yeah.
And he was one of the last groups that played there. But he's a special kid, man. He's tough, and he's resilient. He's been through some unbelievable injuries and bounced back every single time. He looks like Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And some of the injuries. He had compartment syndrome in his leg, and for people who don't know what that is, that's a gnarly deal. And missed almost the whole season, but fought.
It was a question of whether he might even lose that leg at one point.
He fought all the way back and got to play the state championship game.
I've always been told that you've never been hit unless you've been hit by a Hurst. So that could go from Jenny all the way down to Landon and Gavin. Landon could hit somebody, but man, I've seen Gavin take some heads off legally, of course, but bigger guys than him, and he knows how to tackle. And I've never seen anybody get by. I never see him arm tackle anybody. It's impressive. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Correct me if I'm wrong. You had a player have 19 tackles.
I think that's right.
In the first game of the season.
I think it was Luke or Jeremy. It was. We had a kid.
Yeah, it was Jeremy.
So tell me a little bit about Jeremy and his progress, because I know over the last year and a half, 2 years, there's been some definite progress you've seen. Then we'll talk about Luke in a second.
If we lined up to play kickball, nobody's probably going to pick Jeremy. He's just an average-looking kid, but his leadership and his talent with his brain, it's just amazing. He's to the point now. He'll check if they line up with a formation flip, he'll check a blitz. Like, he understands how we think as coaches, and he's just a tough kid, and he's super competitive, and he's the leader of our defense. He gets everybody lined up, and he's probably 5'9", 175 pounds, and plays Mike linebacker.
Is he a senior this
He's a
year? Junior. It gets me kind of excited knowing all these juniors that are on your team. Let's talk about Luke Toothaker. We all talked about Luke the other day when we were talking about this idea of this podcast.
Yeah.
Luke Toothaker is one of these kids that probably started out in youth programs, and you probably thought, well, this is a nice recreation for this kid. And, he gets to go out and run some and get in shape. The Luke Toothaker that was a freshman that was learning how to play tight end and defense is not the same kid that is playing right now. It's a totally different kid, totally different attitude, and positive attitude. Almost to the point of it's almost funny to watch him when he's hooting and hollering on the sidelines and things. But he's feeling it. He's feeling himself right now. Talk about the progress. Maybe all three of you want to talk about the progress of somebody like Luke Toothaker and what it means to go from the programs all the way up and how that happens.
I've known Luke since he was a little kid. His family and I, we all go to church together out at the Forks of Elkhorn. So I remember when Luke was playing upward football out there, flag football, And so I've been blessed to watch Luke grow through our youth program, and you nailed it, man. I mean, he's a kid who was just kind of right in the middle of the pack all the way through his days of playing youth football and middle school. And it wasn't, a couple years ago, I remember sitting in church actually and looking across to the other side of the balcony, and I saw Luke stand up, and I thought, my goodness, that kid's getting huge, And ever since then, I mean, you've just seen him really take off in so many ways as a leader and just his abilities on the field. And I'll let those guys speak to after that. But just really good friends with his family, and they're great people. And absolutely love seeing Luke have the success that he's having.
Talk to me about your experience with him.
He's outstanding, and I have similar memories. I haven't known him as long as Brandon, but I remember the flag football games and sitting there at flag football because he had come. We actually partnered the Rams with Forks of Elkhorn's flag football to kind of start giving kids opportunity to get used to playing football. And Luke was one of those kids who had never played tackle football and played flag. And I remember talking to his dad, Mark, about, hey, you need to get him signed up. Let's get him signed up. And we kind of progressed that conversation through flag league, and after that season he went ahead and signed him up, and he got 2 or 3 years with the Rams and really had a lot of success there, and they were on a really, really good football team, and a lot of those kids moved on, had a lot of success at Elkhorn, and he just continually worked, continually pushed himself, and you could just see him figuring it out. Every little bit, every few games, he would continually get better and kind of developed into what he is today.
And Coach James, there's a point, and I could see it when Luke was a freshman, that Luke could go, this has been great, this is state quality championship football, I could be helping my dad with the horses, or I could, be spending time with, doing other things, and he stuck with it, and he made that choice to get better. It wasn't gonna happen overnight for him. He just kept working, and now he's seeing the benefits of it, and I've seen him play both sides of the ball, and it appears that he's confident on both sides of the ball.
He's a special player, man, and really he's a testament to why we're all sitting here. He's a testament to the programs. He has been through it, and he's worked, and it would have been easy for him to give. I remember his freshman year on Thanksgiving, I had to call Mark. I think he broke his collarbone, and so I had to call Mark, and we're going on this great run. We're having a lot of fun, and it would have been easy then. He dislocated his elbow last year. Like, he's got every reason, but he just keeps coming back. And he's a kid that he knows his deficiencies, and instead of trying to hide them, he attacks them. But it's a testament to the things he's learned along the way through these programs about hard work and dedication. he's getting his payday right now, and he's a very, very good football player with 2 years left. Like he's special, and he's a kid. You know, he caught the winning catch against Bryan Station. You know, we called a play, and he caught it. The ball was floating up in the air, and we're all thinking, I hope he catches it. And he comes down and makes a huge play. He made the play to run the quarterback out of bounds on 4th down against Great Crossing.
I was going to say that it was as if all of that build up from the time that he's 6, 7 years old, and you've known him, to the time of him pushing the quarterback out on 4th down when it was 4th and 3, 4th and 4, and he pushes him out of bounds. He's trying to dance along the sideline, and Luke comes along and pushes him out. It was like this pinnacle of everything he had worked for so far. He's still got some time, as you said, but it's the hard work that he played on. And correct me if I'm wrong, does he have 5 sacks already this year?
Yeah, that's correct.
So I mean, it's not like he's one good play out there, a game. He's really hustling. Talk to me about any of the other special players that each of you have right now. I want you to highlight, and they don't necessarily have to be the best athletes. Talk to me about some players that are good leaders for you guys.
Yeah, sure. As Leroy
We're talking about my kid. He's 5 and learn how to put his shoulder pads on.
So last year we had a very talented team with the Rams, and those are kids who are playing huge roles for the middle school, and we actually won the Central Division championship in the LYFL last year, and so those kids are great athletes. And Leroy mentioned earlier we've got a kid who could be playing for the Rams this year, he would easily be the best kid in the league. But really and truly, like this year at our Mighty Mites level, we've got a ton of talented young kids there. We've got a really good Pee Wee team that's got a ton of talent there. And then at our junior level, we don't have the same caliber of talent that we had last year, but we've got a whole lot of tough, gritty little kids, and you never know which one of them are going to make the play,
Yeah.
And
which ones are going to sprout up 6 inches over?
Yeah. I mean, which one of them is the next Luke Toothaker? You know what I mean?
Right.
And we always tell our parents over and over and over to trust the process. And and it's a lot of what we've talked about with Luke today. I think a lot of parents want to see their kids have success right now, or they think they're going to go find some special trainer who's going to fix everything right now, or over a couple weeks or training sessions or whatever, and it's going to turn them into this Division I athlete. But we always just tell them, like, look, just trust us, trust that we have the best interest of your kid at heart here, and we want to see them grow. But we've got Preston Schaefer, who is the younger brother to Peyton Ledford, and he's a kid who really stands out. He's tough, hard-nosed kid. We often have to rein him back on defense to let him.
It's hard to believe that a little brother of Peyton Ledford have to rein him back in.
So we have to. He's constantly wanting to fly downfield and just hit somebody. Yeah, and we're like, whoa, we've got responsibilities that you have. We've got a kid named Jay Edwards who's a really talented little running back. We talked earlier about kids coming from different programs. We've got a couple twins that are Cochrans, and their dad owns the car lot over at EZ Car Connection, and they're super talented kids. And it's just a whole bunch of kids that, as a team, we're doing really well right now. We're actually undefeated in our division.
Wow.
And they're playing really strong, and we've actually had a couple games that have been out of our division that are against some tougher teams that we've lost, and we've learned a lot from those games, and I've seen those kids grow through those games. You've seen them kind of get the big eyes when everything wasn't going their way, or they took a big hit.
Or to see the other team step off the bus for the first time.
You know what? When you play in the LYFL, there's oftentimes when teams walk up and you think to yourself, "Oh boy, here we go." Yeah. But no, we've got a great group of kids. They're very coachable. They're very respectable, and we've seen them grow tremendously since we started in the summer. And again, we're just excited about who's going to be that next kid that really stands out at the middle school or at the high school.
And of course, Coach James' kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And of course, Jax. We all love Jax.
Yeah.
No, and that's something that's super rewarding. Years later to see the fruits of our labor come to fruition. That's just huge.
You guys are just now starting to see I mean, you're
This is the first group that was Rams. Our seniors this year are the 2016 group we've talked about.
yeah. So that's pretty impressive. Leroy, talk to me about some of the leaders on your 7th and 8th grade team right now.
You know, we're loaded with good kids.
Which Coach James loves to hear.
Yeah, we really, and we didn't know going into the season. You know, Brandon and I joked is, you know, we set the bar pretty high, and our expectations are pretty high. So kind of going into our first game, you know, we didn't know how good we were going to be. We were a little disappointed in what we'd seen so far. We just did not think we were performing well. We didn't think our kids understood what the expectations were, and we were kind of worried, middle school-wise, what we were going to see. Now, since that first game, we've had some really good success. We've played some good football. A lot of good kids. A lot of the kids that come off of the Rams team that Brandon mentioned, you know, a lot of those kids come up. But what we've got with that 7th grade group is just a ton of kids who work hard, who play really, really well together, and who are having a ton of fun playing football. You know, we're really good up front. I got a kid named Aaron Bond who just actually started football last year. I believe it was his first year, but Brandon and I saw him in the parking lot.
It was like the blind side. Like
We saw him in the parking lot, yeah.
Line.
And I looked over at Brandon and I said, "Do you see that kid?" And we ended up going over and meeting his mom, talked to her a little bit. He'd never played football before. I believe, was he up there for flag, I believe?
Yep, he started in the spring flag.
And so we went over and talked to him. So we played Rams football last year, but he's a great offensive tackle. Got a kid who come from another program, Andre Creech, plays guard for us. And it's really a powerful kid. He's not quite as big as Aaron, but he's extremely powerful. And he really gives our 8th graders a run for their money. So we'll put him in on a scout team, and next thing you know, he's in the backfield. And so he'll push those 8th graders. And so when he gets in there, he gets 7th graders. He does a really good job.
Make him drink a lot of milk, eat a lot of vegetables.
Sure.
Like while he's there, helping him.
Yeah.
Some growth spurts.
If he hits a growth spurt, as powerful he is right now, he's going to have a ton of success. And then, yeah, we love the quarterbacks. So both Brandon's
We all love the quarterbacks too.
Yeah, Brandon's son and my son are both 7th grade quarterbacks. You know, they both do a really good job, different skill sets, but it's kind of a unique dynamic because they both play 7-on-7 together. They both play quarterback at the middle school. They both play on defense. They're both linebackers on the defensive group. And so Lane and Mason both do a really good job and give us kind of that change-up, what we need to
quarterback issue.
Love
in a few
having
years.
quarterbacks.
Right.
We never have enough.
Right. Can never have enough quarterbacks. Right.
And so that 7th grade team's good. We got a really good running back. Joe Montgomery hits the hole. Runs downhill. Is a powerful runner. And then we talked about Christian Nicholson is kind of a home run threat. He's the 6th grader who's an exceptional talent. The ceiling for him is through the roof. But we've also got a bunch of other kids. Patrick Jackson is a 7th grader who's really standing out, and I could go on and on and on. There's just that class is loaded. Ty Smith, Ty's been hurt throughout most of the year. He's kind of got to play in spurts, but he's an extremely large and long, athletic kid who's going to be a really good football player when we can get him on the field.
In your 8th grade team?
8th grade team was a little bit thin. You know, our numbers were really down from last year, but that team competed with extremely low numbers last year. We had a couple injuries and ended up going with about 16, 17 kids last year. After having some of them hurt. And when we really knew that they were a special group is when we went up to Johnson Central. We've got some history up there, obviously. And went up there.
We have some history with some of the officials down there, too. Yeah. That's a different story.
But they went to Johnson Central last year, and really a game that we didn't know if we could be in. We knew it would take everything we had. And with 50 seconds left in the game, we're down 6 with the ball and a chance to win the ball game. And they were a lot bigger, a lot more athletic, and our kids went up there and in true Franklin County football fashion. When we stepped on that field, it was a battle, and they played with everything they had. And we did not win the game, but at the end of the game, we were extremely proud. And so we knew we had a good hardcore group, and we've added some pieces to that group. So they're actually having a ton of success this year as well. Both teams are undefeated right now. Collectively, they're 11-0.
And your next game is against
Scott County.
Oh,
Scott
okay.
County at Scott County on Thursday.
On Thursday night. Okay.
So yeah, so we've got some talented kids on that 8th grade group. You got Jackson Engel is kind of our do everything, big strong fullback kid.
I saw Coach James perk up when you mentioned him, so
Yeah.
he must be waiting for him.
He's tough. We're loaded up front. We got two really big, good linemen that kind of set our left side of the line. We've got it's Blake and Cheek. You know, you've got Blake and Cheek up there, and both are. I think Blake is 280, Cheek's about 270 as 8th graders. So they're big up front.
They can play.
Yeah, they're both big boys.
And they can move.
Yeah.
At 280 and 270.
They move well. Yeah, they don't move all the time, but they do move well.
Coach, when can we move? Can we get the extra rule like they have in baseball?
We're not scared to play. We were starting 2 freshmen on D9 this year.
So, Coach, we talked a lot about some of the leaders on your team.
Let's move to this weekend. Tell me about what we should expect when it comes to playing Spencer County. Spencer County is known for running some funky stuff sometimes. They also have what I like to say a corn-fed bunch of boys up there usually who are big and mean and strong. So tell me what we should expect. I do know they're coming off a loss at South Alden, but week to week is different every time. So tell me what we should expect.
Coach Marchberry does a really good job. He's a friend of mine. He's a good high school football coach, and every single year, no matter what they got, they get everything out of their kids. And when you coach public high school football, that's a sign you're a good coach. For me and us specifically this week, you have to play rules-based football when you play somebody that runs what they run, and they're good at what they do, no matter if they're up, down, talent-wise. So we're going to need to play rules-based football. If we don't do that, we could be in a pickle real quick. If you have 2 guys doing the wrong thing, they can pop a touchdown just with how they do it and that kind of stuff. That concerns me. We've had a really good week of practice. We worked on them on the bye week, so we feel good about our plan, and we want to go out and execute it. And it's going to be a big night for our program. It's our first home game. It's middle of September, so it's kind of late. We got all of our kids signed up for our youth night, but it should be a fun atmosphere, and it's just another opportunity to go out and compete and get better. For us, they're a district opponent now, so obviously every district game we win, that helps us host in November. So that's our goal, is to move to 1-0 in the district, and we want to get after them. We want to start building some success on offense and have our kids believe in and seeing what we see in them. They haven't seen that in the game for a magnitude of reasons, but they're hungry to have some success, and our defense is they're itching to play again and hit somebody. So we saw that in practice today. We had a very physical practice today. Our kids were flying around, and we're ready to get to Friday night.
One thing I need to tell everybody is that there are no visitor stands currently,
That's
correct? So you need to, and there's no end zone stands either because of the.
So there will be end zone stands.
Okay, great.
And they're going to put some on the ends of the bleachers too, is my understanding.
Good. So get there early if you want to get a good seat. That means tailgating ends a little earlier. Kickoff is
7:30.
7:30, and as a band geek, band's out there at 7:15. So make sure you're there to support everybody. Youth football night that you guys are supporting. I'm just going to close with a little bit of more praise for you guys. Brandon, I know that you went out of your way to invite a bunch of kids to your church recently on a Wednesday night, and I think you had over 60 kids show up, and that was from middle school, high school. It was at both groups that you invited kids to go to, and you don't see that a lot when it comes to not just football programs that you're invested in their lives, but bringing kids to church programs and programs that you're proud of. Tell me a little bit about why you did that and why you felt that it was important to do that for these kids.
So last year we started doing it with the Rams, and each week that we did it, we had a great turnout. And during this off season, I talked to Leroy and Eddie and told them that it was something that I would like to do at all 3 levels if we can work it out. And so they were all on board with it, loved the idea. And so it works out that on Wednesday nights, the middle school is going through a walkthrough practice. And Eddie and his guys are usually done around 6:15 or so. And so talked with JT Coleman, who's our youth minister out at the church, and Todd and all them. They love the idea of that many kids being able to come. And truthfully, there's a lot of kids in our program who may never get the opportunity to go to a church.
This is fully voluntary.
This is absolutely voluntary.
And
We don't tell anybody that you have to go or anything like that. It's just simply, hey guys, if you'd like to come, we're going to feed you. You'll have time to go up and sit in our youth lounge and hang out. We've got ping pong tables and pool tables, and music's always playing. And then everybody gets together and sits down, and JT leads the lesson.
That is so important in this day and time, because the garbage that kids are being fed through social media and also on television, they never feel like they can meet a certain standard. They're told that church is not cool, and to have 60 kids show up just to be around other kids, I think is, if nothing more, as a believer myself, it is amazing. But if nothing more, you've got these kids out of the house and they're socializing with other kids and outside of school.
And they're getting to do something that's outside of football.
That's correct.
So they're just hanging out together, eating a meal together, and just
All that's going to do is
taking it
build
easy.
up a better
Sure.
teamwork when you have these kids as well.
Yeah, and we talked about Christian Moore earlier. The first week that we did it, it was kind of a funky week of practice because we had the heat advisories going on.
Right.
And so the first week that we did it, the middle school actually wasn't practicing. I can't remember what the logistics were of it, but we didn't fill up both buses the first time. And Christian was like, Coach, by week 3, we'll have these buses full, And actually by week 2, we were making 2 trips because the buses were full. And so we'll pick up everybody from the middle school and we'll shuttle them out, and then we'll hustle back and get the high school kids picked up. And it's awesome, man. You see those kids, and you actually see, we get to do it with the high school and the middle school kids are together, and the younger ones are over in our children's wing. But those middle school kids get to see those high school kids really engaging in the conversation of the Bible
In
study.
a social situation.
Yeah.
It's not just on a football field.
Right.
One of the best pictures that I saw you share and other folks share last year was one of your Rams football players was baptized at Forks of Elkhorn, and you had the whole team. It seemed like there showed up for him, and that was a big deal, and I think that struck a lot of people in this community that these kids wanted to be there, and they made sure they were there, and so I commend you for that. I think that's fantastic that you live boldly outside of just X's and O's.
Leroy, what you're doing with the 6th through 8th graders, that's the hardest age in the entire world.
Yes.
We have a 7th and an 8th grader. Jen's sitting over here for anybody who can't see. She's laughing over here. Just getting them to shower on a regular basis is hard enough. But they are going through every emotion with regard to growing up in puberty and being a man and things of that nature, and what all that takes. And like we said, there's so many of them that don't have male role models in their lives. So
Kids these age that I have found crave accountability, and I think you have probably seen that with what you've done.
Yeah, it's something that we try to, continuously push through the program. I'm in, luckily with my job, I travel a lot, but I travel when I need to and when, based on my schedule. So I do have an office there at the school. So there's a lot of days where I'll get over to the school and I'll work from my office at the school. And if a teacher needs something or they have issues, there's days where I'll get 4 or 5 contacts. And I've actually got set up in the internal system of the school where if a kid's having problems, obviously I get weekly grade reports, and extremely proud of our kids. 66% of our kids on the football team, middle school team last year had a 3.0 or better. So we're
Unbelievable. That's fantastic.
performing well, but there's always things we can do better.
Sure.
And so kids are going to struggle. Kids are going to do things that probably not smart decisions. So when they make those decisions, we get contacted and we address it. And sometimes we have frustrating days. We had one this week that was a pretty frustrating day, and the kids were well aware we were frustrated, and they were probably frustrated themselves. But we worked through it. We tried to get better, and I think we ended up better for it at the end.
Coach James, I'll end with you, and the impact that you've had on a number of kids over the last 7 years is really seen on the side of your training facility at this point. There were kids who went to college from Franklin County in years past. You know, you talked about Steve Compassi, and we had other Ryan Timmons and those guys who went to Division I programs. What you have been able to accomplish in the last few years, getting the number of kids not just to Division I programs, but to Division II programs, even NAIA programs, that allows them to go to college because they have something to focus on. I think is a testament to teaching these young men to look beyond football and look beyond today.
You know, football's the tool. The goal is for these kids to be successful. You know, for every kid that we've got that is going to go play college football, we've got a welder or somebody that's chosen the military or somebody that's going to be an engineer. So those are successes too. Those are the unwritten ones. Everybody sees the Peyton Ledford going to Army, which is a huge accomplishment. But our quarterback last year, Emmanuel Smith, he's going to Tulsa Welding School. He's going to go learn how to weld and make more money than all of us.
Than all of us in this room.
But he has a plan, and through our program, he's learned structure and discipline and accountability and what it's like to get up in the morning and go to work even when you don't want to. So those are the things. And to me, my role, and I get all the interview paper and all that stuff, is to serve these kids. So I understand that every kid is not Peyton Ledford. And I'm going to work hard for Peyton Ledford and email coaches and get him to camp and share that stuff. But the kid that can't do that, what's his plan? And I think that we do a good job of reaching out to those kids and making sure that they have something. You know, when their senior season's over, we work for them all the time. But when it's over and done, we go to work. You know, I'm sending in the spring probably 100 to 200 emails a day for kids to get recruited. You know, and then, okay, I don't want to play college. Okay, what do you want to do? And what's your goal? What's your plan? Because some of them, you wouldn't believe how many of them don't have a plan. And they don't have parents at home that are pushing the plan.
Right.
You can't sit on your butt and expect things to happen. So we teach them to work and advocate for themselves. And that's where we get ahead, man. And not everyone is a success story. We've had kids that have quit, dropped out, that are in jail, but it doesn't change the goal. We just want to keep working for them. And we've had a kid that got in a lot of trouble. He calls back, Coach, I want to get my tape out. Okay, let's get your tape out. Let's figure out what we can do to give you a chance to be set up for success. And it starts with these guys, though, man. If people don't see how much goes on behind our program. We're going to lift at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm probably going to make 2 trips to get kids there. I'm going to go pick up 2 truckfuls of kids, but not have a chance. But what do? They get out of bed. I make them text me that they're up, so they're being accountable. They're ready to go. I don't wait more than 5 minutes for them because your job's not going to wait. But our kids will do it. They get up because they believe in what we're doing. And that's going to teach them something that's going to benefit them in 5 years.
In the end of this season, one of the things that I'm always impressed with is on senior night, there will be the Peyton Ledfords and there will be the Ryan Timmons and the Caden Mormons that may play in a Division I program. But you also have kids who are going to study, pre-med and pre-law and engineering. These aren't your dumb football jocks that people would think. These are leaders and kids that you're proud of. And in a community like this, just speaking from my own professional background, that's tough. The numbers are not in your favor. I don't know how you've kept the numbers the way that they are. To say we have some losses where some kids get in trouble. You're lucky you have any victories, and the ones you do have are commended. I think
all 3 of you should be commended for that. We are actually going to
continue this each week. It will not be as boring with as many questions and letting you get to know these guys. We're going to do some more fun stuff in the future. We're going to have some players on. We're going to ask them some goofy questions and also learn a little bit about them. We want the community to learn about this program a little bit from the inside out. We're going to show what weight training looks like and what a practice looks like and walkthroughs look like and pre-games look like. But at the same time, we want you to have a human element of what this is.
What you guys have been able to accomplish on the field is outweighed by what you're doing off the field. And that is, if what you're doing on the field is as successful as it is, I can only imagine the difference you're making in these kids' lives. So
we will be back here at the House on the Hill at some point next week, and I hope we will start out 4-0, Coach, and 1-0 in the district. That'll get us one step closer to hosting that playoff game that we deserve on that beautiful turf. So you guys make sure you're out there tonight, and let's go Flyers.
Go Flyers.
go Flyers.